Let's discuss the top 10 first basemen in MLB The Show 22. We're talking about first basemen, we're talking about primary first basemen, not secondary first basemen such as Matt Carpenter. Looking at 4 attributes, we averaged them out, and that's how we came up with our top 10 list. Which were the 4 attributes? Well, contact versus right and left, and then power versus right and left. Hey, first baseman, you never really care about the fielding because even Frank Thomas will make the diving plays. Last but not least, let's discuss the cost and whether or not it is worth to get that first baseman. At number 10, we have ourselves Todd Helton, who is a great contact hitter against both lefties and righties, and having power numbers around the same numbers means he's gonna have the same amount of pop against lefties and righties, so it doesn't matter who you bring up against him. He just misses that 80 threshold in terms of power, so that's a little bit unfortunate on his behalf, but I promise you, he'll still hit bombs because he usually has a pretty good swing in the game. Now, Todd Helton's price averages around 20K, I would say, and I think that out of the 10 first basemen we have in this list, he's definitely one of the best budget first basemen you can get. Number 9, we have David Ortiz, who still has good contact numbers against right-handers. Versus left-handers, he drops off a little bit, but it's still good enough, especially in the earlier difficulties. And then the power at 106, he's going to be hitting shots against righties. Versus lefties, the good thing about David Ortiz is he meets that 80 threshold once he's parallel 3. So that's going to be a humongous plus, and he'll have over 80 contact versus left once he's parallel 3 as well. So as you parallel David Ortiz, he just continues to get better and he meets the thresholds you want. David Ortiz's price ranges around 38K. The cover athlete pack was available, I believe, in yesterday's flash sale pack, so you could have gotten him for around whatever the price that pack was. I didn't even pay attention to it because I wasn't buying any of it. At number 8, the list gave me Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Now, the reason why he's number 8 will most likely be because his contact numbers and power numbers versus righties are amazing, but then he drops off big time in terms of contact versus left, but he still has 85 power versus left, which is really good, and it meets that 80 threshold you want. Now, the reason why I believe that the list is wrong here is if inside edge is taken into consideration, I promise you that Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is probably top 5 first basemen inside the game. Now, the big downside to him is if you don't pack him, you're gonna have to spend big time stubs in order to have him as a first baseman, and I just don't think it's worth it when you have players that can give you the same amount without inside edge taken into consideration. Support the channel for free by hitting that like button, red subscribe button, notification bell, Twitch and Discord inside the description. We stream at 10 p.m. Eastern. At number 7, welcome to the Crone Zone. He's better against lefties, so he's a platoon hitter 100%, and then he still has the power you need versus righties to hit home runs without a problem. His contact versus right, that's the downside to him. He's sort of like Vladimir Guerrero Jr. I believe the reason why they ranked him higher, this is like us using the shredder, by the way. I believe the reason that they ranked him higher than Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is just because he has a bit more contact versus left, and then the power numbers are both 90. Like, everything balances out well for CJ Cron. He also has a really good swing in the game, so he's an above average card 100%, and usually the price for him is going to be 14K, so he's definitely another good budget card that you can use at first base, especially if your lineup is already full of lefties. Seeing Spencer Torkelson come in at number 6 surprised me a little bit until I looked at the attributes a little bit more closely. He reminds you a lot of Todd Helton in terms of good contact numbers. He doesn't have them as good as Todd Helton, but they're still pretty good. He's a platoon hitter, he's better against lefties, but he's an all-around hitter regardless of him being better versus lefties, since he still has good contact versus right-handers, and even better, he meets that 80 power threshold against both sides and even more against lefties. So this guy is going to give you everything you want. Now, some people say they just can't go ahead and get the hang of his swing, so that might be the only downside to him, but in terms of all the cards that we have inside this list, this card right here is going to be the best one that you can get in terms of bang for your buck, as his average price is going to be 10K inside the community market. Number 5, Jim Thome. He has contact versus both sides near the same amount, and then the power numbers, he's just amazing against right-handers, so you definitely want him whenever a right-handed pitcher is on the mound. Versus left-handers, he still can hit it out, and you don't really care about the size of the PCI, especially in the lower difficulties, let alone at the higher difficulties either, because if you can hit with 82 contact versus right against legend right-handed pitchers, then without a problem you should be able to hit with 79 contact versus left against legend left-handed pitchers, unless you just suck lefty on lefty, then that's the excuse you can go ahead with. In terms of his price, he got a whole lot more expensive because Jose Ramirez hit the high tier diamond, and Jose Ramirez was already one of the best diamond hitting cards inside the game, so him hitting high tier diamond made his attributes a whole lot better, which inflated his price a whole lot more. And now this collection, in terms of the average cost, is going to be 70,000 stubs. Number 4 was probably the biggest surprise out of all in this list. Ryan Howard comes in at number 4. He is great against right-handers. Versus left-handers, he has the power, but the contact is not really where you want it. But that's perfectly fine, because at the end of the day, you most likely are going to platoon your first baseman, where you're going to have a great hitter ready for right-handed pitching, and then a great hitter for first base ready for left-handed pitching. And I think in general, if there's a righty, you definitely want Ryan Howard on the mound. Now the average cost for Ryan Howard is going to be around 27K. Definitely not the best bargain for one of the top first basemen. As you can see, we have gotten a lot of previous first basemen that are a lot cheaper and can do the same thing. Number 3, the card that we saw for the first time last year is going to come in once again. Prince Fielder, 8680 contact numbers, those are good enough. And then the power numbers, it doesn't matter who you have on the mound. He's gonna be able to hit a home run no problem. And that's exactly what you want from a first baseman, especially when it's a left-handed hitter. You want him to be able to hit lefty on lefty, and you want him to be able to hit righty on righty, or lefty on righty, excuse me. The average cost, although, for Prince Fielder is gonna be a hefty one as well. It's not as hefty as Vladimir Guerrero Jr., but it's gonna be hefty as in 145,000 stubs, which is still a lot by a wide margin. Number 2, it's gonna be Jason Giambi. Great contact against right-handers and powers, and then versus lefties, he hits that 80 power threshold, and then the 84 contact is gonna be good enough. Trust me on that one. Now, the one thing about him is that you can get him for absolutely free. So despite his average cost being 36,000 stubs, you can get him for absolutely free if you complete that Battle Royale program and you select him inside that Flawless pack, which you might not want to because Oral Hershiser is also available inside that Flawless pack. Or if you're good enough to go 12-0, you can absolutely get him for free by just selecting him inside that Battle Royale Flawless pack. Number 1, it should be no surprise. It's Frank Thomas. It's gotta be Frank Thomas. If it wasn't Frank Thomas, then this card would be 100% worthless. I mean, look at the card. It has over 100 basically in each and every single category. It's a platoon hitter where it's better versus left-handers in terms of the contact and power numbers combined, but versus right-handers, it gives you just enough. More than enough, I should say. 109, 105, 105, 125. Whenever he's on the damn plate, you are nervous because he can hit anything out, and he will scoop a sinker outside of the strike zone and hit it out. Trust me, it happened to me in Battle Royale. I would know. Being number 1 comes with a cost, of course, and he's the most expensive one out of them all, since you need to collect the entire AL Live Series, which is gonna come in at 1.05 million stubs. Now that's a hefty price to pay. But if you've done it already, then this is definitely the guy you want playing at first base, unless he has an unusable swing for you. If he has an unusable swing for you, then hey, you got 9 other guys to select from. Support the channel for free by hitting that like button, red subscribe button, notification bell, Twitch and Discord inside the description. We stream at 10 p.m. Eastern.